What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling, and we're talking about this week's edition of AEW Dynamite, the Blood and Guts edition from Detroit. Something around 13,000 people at the show, which, you know, AEW's been stacking them in for these shows lately here, man. Some big crowds, you know. They're getting big. You know, the past week they've been getting bigger crowds than some of the other guys. But yeah, this was another big show for AEW, and they did not skimp on this at all, man. You know, they said that Blood and Guts was the highlight of the show. They gave the entire second hour to the Blood and Guts match, which again is essentially the inheritance of the War Games matches, the NWA Crockett version, WCW version of the War Games match. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm almost lost for words about how insane this thing was. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that this being YouTube, you guys know the deal. YouTube loves this algorithm. So if you can give a kendo stick and smack the living crap out of that like button, throw some glass on the mat, throw some thumbtacks down there, get a barbed wire bat, and just whoop the living crap out of that like button, like Eddie Kingston going through the Blood and Guts cage. It helps the YouTube algorithm let other wrestling fans know about this video, and it does help a lot, so I do appreciate it. But let's talk about Blood and Guts. The rest of the first hour of the show, we start off with Orange Cassidy versus Ethan Page, which was a good way for Orange Cassidy after, you know, that tremendous match he had with Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door on Sunday. He got his win back. You know, there's a little thing about Ethan Page having to do the job here, but I think it's fine. Ethan Page, I kind of worry a little bit because I think he's a talent that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of AEW, but again, he's still on the shows. I think his brighter days are in the future for Ethan Page. But that was a great way to open the show. The crowd is really into Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy now back from injury. He's definitely coming up as a star in AEW, one of their biggest stars now, and he has been for quite some time. We had a bit of a split between the Gun Club and the Acclaimed as they were taking on the wow. Danhausen pulled out FTR as his tag team partners in the six-man tag match. And what wound up happening is that some miscommunication happened. FTR and Danhausen wind up winning the match. And afterwards, the ass boys aren't really happy with the Acclaim. Max Caster in particular. And there's a little bit of a shoving match there. And of course, of all people, Daddy Ass, Billy Gunn, seems to take the side of the Acclaim. Now, to me, this smells of eventual chicanery, a little bit of misdirection here, but it looks like we are finally heading towards that Gun Club Acclaim feud taking off. The only thing about that I'm going to miss, though, is I think maybe it's a little too early because I was kind of digging the whole entrance from these guys being together. The entrance over the past couple months with the Gun Club and the Acclaims are just funny, with the Gun Club always getting the name of their of the town wrong. And them having to, you know, correct it, and, you know, Max Caster's raps are great, and then, you know, Scissor Me Daddy Ass. That whole entrance, it is right up there with the old New Age Outlaws entrance. That's what it reminds me of. It's like when the New Age Outlaws were first doing their whole mic shtick on their entrance back in the day, back in the Attitude Era. That apparently is coming down the road. Christian Cage, wow. His interview was just, I mean, he's really pushing the envelope. I mean, he's saying that, you talk about Jungle Boy's entire family being dead. I mean, obviously, of course, it's in bad taste because Luke Perry passed away. It was a terrible thing. Look, I'm a 90s kid. Luke Perry, there's not a woman I know my age that was not in love with Luke Perry in high school. So that touches a lot of people that I know quite well. But then Christian Cage brings out a repackaged Luchasaurus, who does a squash match. Just lasted about maybe a minute. Luchasaurus, now the darker version of Luchasaurus, got a lot of Kane vibes from his entrance and from his performance here. But Luchasaurus has gone to the dark side. Christian Cage is acting as his manager or his handler or whatever. And just this, I like the way this is going. It's really, really dark storyline. And with Jungle Boy selling an injury, not being on the show this week, now having to come back against both Luchasaurus and Christian Cage on his own, I'm kind of wondering where this is going to lead Jungle Boy Jack Perry. But this could be a big springboard to his singles career. Remember, there's nobody to get Jungle Boy's back. Not even Marco Stunt, who's not with the company anymore, even though if he was, what's Marco Stunt going to do against Luchasaurus and Christian Cage? So this is something to keep an eye on, and as usual of AEW, they're going to let this breathe, and I like that. I think that's what the story needs. Christian as a heel is way better than he's been as a face for the last year he's been in AEW, and this is what we kind of been waiting for from him ever since that Battle Royal where Jungle Boy knocked him out of that Battle Royal last year. We kind of knew this was coming, so Christian Cage has been knocking it out of the park and just being a disgusting. I mean, he wants to be a heel. He is being a heel. There is no way. There's nothing cool about Christian Cage and what he's doing right now. So you just are going to hate him, and he is really, really good at it. Jade Cargill had a match against Lila Gray and continuing Jade's undefeated streak. And this was, again, kind of a squash match. But afterwards, there was some mic work, and then we have Chris Statlander and Athena coming to the ring. They look like they're going to get the comeuppance on Jade and her crew, but there was a little bit of a quick turn. I'm not quite sure how this worked out. I don't know if it played out so well on TV, but Layla did wind up joining with Jade, who had just whooped her ass, and helping to beat down Athena and Chris Statlander. So apparently we're going to get a new baddie. Maybe, maybe not, because Jade didn't really look to be too impressed with Layla. Like, get the hell out of here. You're not really one of the baddies. So, yeah, it's again, the female storylines need to work at AEW, but at least this is something that makes you kind of wonder what's going to happen here. And I think a Mean Girl thing could work. It just depends on how they play it, but we're going to have to see in the future how they're going to play it. We get an interesting promo from the Young Bucks where they're talking about how the fact that all their friends are pretty much gone, which is actually true. And I never even realized that, the AEW for the first year was pretty much the Young Bucks and their friends at the center of the whole storyline. And now, Adam Page is not with them anymore. Adam Cole is hurt. Red Dragon is hurt. Obviously they didn't mention this, but Cody's left the company. Kenny is hurt. So, and they don't even have stupid what's-his-face behind the camera, Brandon Cutler, to do it at camera. They said they got an intern to do it. So the Young Bucks are on their own, and they are now going to defend the AEW Tag Team Championships against new challengers. Although these new challengers are not FTR, surprisingly enough, it is Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto, who they intentionally call Goto, which I thought was a little weird. I was like, they know Goto's name. Why do they keep calling him Goto? But it was all for them to do some stupid go to hell line at the end, which was typical lame, corny Young Bucks kind of heel work. But there won't be a title defense this Friday on Dynamite, on Rampage. It will be an elimination match, which is a very WWE concept. I don't really like it that much, but they're doing that here. And Bushimon, the team of Yoshihashi, and Goto win that match on Friday at Rampage. Then they'll get an AEW tag title match. So I guess this is a way to kind of put some breathing room between FTR winning all those championships and what I assume is probably going to be an all-out, which is the third match between the Young Bucks and FTR, which, FTR going for yet a fourth tag team championship. So, it seems like that's going to be down the road, and we're 2 months away from that, so we'll see how that happens. Now this blood and guts match, man. I don't know even what to say. This, and I hate to do this stuff because, I actually don't like comparisons to WWE. I like the companies to be separate and do their own things. But I have to bring this up because I remember covering the NXT War Games matches. And, obviously, most people know Blood and Guts is AEW's version of War Games. And those, or War Game, depending on which company it is, MLW or WWE. And the NXT versions were very clean. They were, again, I always say WWE's more like Pixar, and AEW's more like a Quentin Tarantino movie, or a horror film in this case. And the NXT versions of War Games I liked, but they were the first couple ones I didn't like so much because it was like spot, fall, everybody fall down, everybody sit down, so these two guys can do a spot, then they fall down, and two more guys do a spot, then they fall down. They did get it right in the latter versions of War Games in NXT where they got more of that kind of brawling thing in. But my thing with, if you're going to do Blood and Guts or a War Games match, I grew up with the original War Games. It's one of the first really cool gimmick matches I remember as a young wrestling fan. And the 1987 edition which ironically enough were around the same time, because that was July 4th, 1987, was the first War Games match at the Omni in Atlanta with the Horsemen against Dusty, Nikita, and the Road Warriors and Paul Ellering. That was a brutal match that had spikes going into people's foreheads and people bleeding. J.J. Dillon broke his collarbone and all this other stuff in the match. So there's been a lot of brutal, vicious War Games matches over the years from the old Crockett territory and in WCW, and now later on with MLW and stuff. So my thing always with War Games matches is that they should feel like gang fights. I shouldn't be watching a spot fest in a cage. I want to see a battle, a fight, a gang fight in a cage. And that's what this Blood and Guts match was, more so than most that I have seen in recent years. And it was absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely what I like. And some people may have problems with all the gore and it's called Blood and Guts, for God's sakes. Some people may have problems with the gore. And I say this to you, then this is not the show for you to watch, because it's kind of like this. Like if you're going to tell me there's going to be a Saw movie, and I know what a Saw movie is, but then I want the Saw movie. We don't want it to be that gory. And you give me some like watered down version of a Saw movie, I'm going to hate it, because I'm going to see a Saw movie. I know what Saw is, and if I want to watch a Saw movie, I want to see the traps. I want to see all the gross, crazy, scary, gruesome crap that comes with a Saw movie. And I feel the same way about Blood and Guts matches, War Games matches, even Hell in a Cell. They should be something where you go, oh my God. And this Blood and Guts match was, oh my effing God. There are so many crazy spots in this match. It started out with Sammy Guevara representing the Jericho Appreciation Society. Claudio got in first for his team, the Blackpool Combat Club, along with Kingston and Santana and Ortiz. So that started off, and Jericho's team had the man advantage. They played that really well. They really worked with the rules more so than, and this is another thing about really working the rules and the man advantage thing. There's one point in time where even though Jericho's team has the man advantage, it's all the Blackpool Combat Club guys in there. It's Yuta and Moxley, who came in with, apparently raided Abdullah the Butcher's pantry and got everything out of Abdullah the Butcher's pantry and put it in his jacket and used it in his match. And Claudio, and one of 2.0 gets in the ring. They've got the 4-on-3 advantage, but the Blackpool Combat Club guys have pretty much beaten down everybody else, and he's just trying to run away. He's trying to get everybody else, his boys up, like, come on, get up. And he's like really literally running from Yuta and from Moxley and from Claudio. They finally catch up with him and start beating the crap out of him. There was a crazy table spot in the space between the two rings where Jake Hager got powerbombed. Looked kind of nasty because he bumped the back of his head as the table kind of folded in by a delay. So hopefully he doesn't have a concussion from that. To be mentioned, as far as injuries are concerned, Santana does have an injury. His leg buckled. He was carried out of the match and didn't make it to the end of the match. So add him to the unfortunate list of this terrible year of 2022 and the injury bugs. And the really weird thing about it is that it was a freak accident injury, but with all the kendo sticks and the tables and the chairs and the glass and the thumbtacks and the forks and the skewers and rubbing alcohol, for some reason Eddie Kingston brought that out. Nobody got severely injured from any of that stuff. It was planting your foot wrong in the ring. So it just goes to show you again how wrestling works and how weird that is. Again, Sammy Guevara was great, flying all over the place. Claudio was uppercutting people everywhere. 2.0 and Daniel Garcia were bleeding everywhere. I mean, really, really badly. Moxley had skewers at one point in time. And were driving him into people's heads, and then he hurt himself trying to jam him down because the skewer jammed his hand. Oh my God, it's just there are so many crazy things in here. We got the confrontation, everybody's been waiting for since Sunday when Claudio faced off against Jake Hager, and the crowd started doing a "We the People" chant. That's from their old WWE tag team from several years ago. But this match concluded with Jericho climbing up to the top of the cage. Kingston, who was called in last, climbing up to the top of the cage to go after Jericho. You knew things were going to get bad from here. Sammy Guevara gets up there to try to help out Jericho. He winds up getting thrown off the top of the cage through the announcer table and a crash pad, but they did it a lot better than they did it last year when Jericho was thrown off by MJF and Blood and Guts last year. It looked awesome. Sammy just basically did a front dive off the top of the cage, which is probably, that cage is really high. It looks like the old Hell in a Cell height, probably about 15, 20 feet in the air. So that was a pretty nasty crash by him. Another point in the match, speaking of Sammy Guevara, his main squeeze, Ty Conti, she actually knocked out a referee, undid the chain on the door to let Jericho and Sammy out, so then everybody started falling out of the cage and fighting all over the place. Ruby Soho, who was introduced in the video package at the beginning, she comes down, beating up on Ty Conti. The cameraman had to be very careful because Ty Conti had a very short dress on, and she's rolling around on the ground. I'm like, watch that camera angle because we might see a little bit more than we might see some things that only Sammy should be seeing from the camera angles. Fortunately, they switched it before it got too out of control. Wow, this is so much craziness in this match. Ultimately, though, it winds up with Claudio getting up there. He does the big swing on Jericho on top of the freaking cage. Then we get, I forgot which one of 2.0 got up there. And Claudio gets him, puts him in the sharpshooter. We have Jericho put in the stretch plum by Kingston. And this is a clever ending to this match. While Kingston's he's trying to get the submission on Jericho. Meanwhile, Claudio actually gets the submission and wins the match. And you see Kingston's face, and I'm like, that's really smart. That leads us into the next feud or where we're going with the next storyline here, because I think this is going to wrap up the Eddie Kingston Blackpool Combat Club Sports Entertainment versus Pro Wrestler storyline against the Jericho Appreciation Society. They're going to move on to other stuff. Eddie Kingston's probably going to feel that Claudio stole his thunder by getting the tap out, because Eddie Kingston wanted to end this match by making Jericho tap out, which he's did before. That's how he won the match earlier this year. I think it was either Revolution. I think it was Revolution or Double or Nothing. I forget which pay-per-view it was when Eddie Kingston did beat Chris Jericho at that show. So we're seeing more seeds of distrust and anger from Eddie Kingston towards Claudio, though I think Kingston was a little sore after the match. He was talking. You can see him telling Claudio his back was hurt, kind of breaking character a little bit there. Moxley was having a hard time climbing up the cage because all of the Blackpool Combat Club and Ortiz and Kingston were going to celebrate and do the great money shot at the end with their arms raised in victory at the end of the match on top of the cage. Moxley was having a hard time climbing up the cage, a little hesitant to get up there. Claudio kind of helped him up. And that was a great visual to end the show. And I guess it's probably because, I forgot, my God, there's so many spots in this match again. I forgot Jericho, when there were thumbtacks in the ring, along with glass and everything else, Jericho was dragging Moxley on his back around and just dragging him through the thumbtacks, which is there's too much to recall here. Basically, watch the match. If you didn't see this tonight, go find it. Go find it on your DVR or wherever you can find it. Watch this match. This Blood and Guts match is a spirit. This is what I feel is an actual spiritual successor to the original Crockett, NWA, WCW War Games matches. Again, like I said, there were a lot of brutal things in those old matches back in the day for that time. This is a modern version of that. It felt the same way because back in those days when it was the Horsemen against Dusty and Nikita and the Road Warriors, there was this kind of sense that this is just a big gang fight. And like I said, even back then, there were, Paul Ellering was taking spikes and jamming into people's heads back in 1987. So this is a spiritual successor, an updated, more violent version of that. I thought it was fantastic and wonderful. Only have these once a year, which I think AEW is going to do. And overall, I enjoyed it. But I can see if you're squeamish and you don't like a lot of blood and guts, then obviously you should be watching a match called Blood and Guts. It's not just a gimmick. This match was literally, well, not literally, but it was literally blood. Fortunately, no guts, but literally blood and thumbtacks and glass and barbed wire and all kinds of crazy stuff. The one thing I was surprised at is that Jericho didn't throw a fireball in the match. I was expecting that was going to happen at some point, but Jericho did not throw a fireball in this match. Overall, really good stuff, man. They gave it enough time. You got your money's worth from this show. It was absolutely awesome. One other thing I want to mention, too, is that they also announced that on Rampage on Friday, they're going to be having the Royal Rampage, which is basically a combination of the Royal Rumble match and WCW's old Battle Bowl match, because it's going to happen in the two rings with 10 guys in each ring doing a Battle Royal. The winner of that's going to be the next challenger for Jon Moxley in the interim AEW Championship. I don't know who's going to be in that match, given that I think it's being taped tonight after Dynamite. I don't know if it's live on Friday or not. Maybe, maybe not. I would assume because it's 2 rings, it's probably going to be taped tonight. We didn't see Hangman Page on this show. There were a lot of guys in AEW we did not see on the show because the main event took up the entire second hour. I wouldn't be surprised if Hangman Page was the one to win that one. Remember, we were supposed to have a Hangman Page Jon Moxley match earlier in the year, but Moxley had to go to rehab. So I see this as probably a good way to get Hangman in there and give Moxley, you know what, some people say, don't give him a challenger that we know he's going to win because he just won a title, so they're not going to take the title off him right away. But I kind of prefer it if, with this roster as stacked as it is, I don't think it hurts anybody to have the world champion defending against legitimate guys that you think, well, this guy probably could win the championship because he's a big enough star. I think that was kind of one of the things that hurt Hangman Page's title reign, is that half of the time, or probably more than half of the time, he was defending against guys who you were like, they're not going to put the world title on that guy. I love Lance Archer, but they're not going to put it on Archer. They're not going to put it on Dante Martin or any of the guys that Heyman was defending the title against, except for probably Danielson. So, and Adam Cole was probably not at the right time to do it. But I think if they give Mox, and just going forward with the AEW Championship, I think for the big shows, if you're going to build up to an AEW Championship match, unless it's something like, just an exhibition match on Dynamite or on Rampage, I think it should be built up to a legitimate guy who is a main event guy who you're like, that guy probably could beat the champion and become the champion. So then the matches aren't so predictable. Because that's one criticism I have of AEW, is that the main event world title scene is a little bit too predictable about, when a guy's going to win and when a guy's not going to win the championship from whoever. And it's been that way since the beginning of the company. So we'll see where this goes from here. But overall, I absolutely enjoyed Dynamite this week. The Blood and Guts match was awesome. But I want to know what you guys think about this. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. If you like this video, of course, hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell. Be sure to share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and wherever you talk about pro wrestling and sports entertainment. I will see you guys here as we continue reviewing the crazy, insane, bloody world of wrestling and sports entertainment right here on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.